Hey, welcome back everybody. This is the Antisocial Socialite. If this is your first time here, please hit the subscribe button, smack that notification bell so when I decide to run my mouth, that's MOUF, you will be in the loop. You see the title, you know what time it is. Black women, we need to return to traditionalism. Now, I did a good video. That video was fire. It was flames. And I got into some technical difficulties where it was not in the right format. And I cannot transfer it into another format. I have no clue how I'm going to upload this video. So I've got to do it again and I'm so disappointed. But what can you do? You know, that's life. What prompted this this video? You know, I'm just running through social media, not YouTube, but you know, it's there on YouTube as well. And you have a lot of these women complaining about how stressed they are, how tired they are, how overworked they are. And I'm thinking to myself, this is the lifestyle you chose to live. When you were in your prime, when you had the opportunity to settle down with a good man, you decided to go and pursue your career and your education above securing a decent man. Now that you're overworked, you're stretched too thin, you don't get to see your children, you're not getting to see them grow up, you're now complaining that you have to do it all. And I was thinking to myself, a lot of the in the black community in particular, there's this mantra, I'm the mother and the father and this and that. And I'm thinking, no other culture really prides themselves on saying, I'm a single parent. We know that single parenthood is increasing across the board in all cultures because as Western values become more normalized everywhere across the board, certain things that used to actually be shameful and looked down upon in society are now becoming normal. People don't have the stigma, you know, they don't have the stigma attached like they used to when they were an out of wedlock mother, a teenage parent. It's like, I know we have shows like Teen Mom and 16 and Pregnant and things like that, but do these shows actually discourage people? Yeah, maybe, because we know that the largest demographic of women becoming single mothers are women actually over 30. But it's still not enough. I still see a lot of young women pushing prams. And whether you're a teen mom, whether you're a young mom, whether you're a single mom or you're in a relationship, unless that relationship is concrete and solid to a decent man, it's not ideal to be going and having a child when you don't have that security. And I wasn't really going to talk about that, but it really hurts me when I see women bragging and boasting about how they're the mother and the father. Because we know in a lot of these situations where children are not being raised in an environment that's stable, they're more prone to being abused, they're more likely to be latchkey kids. And that's what I was saying in the other video. During, you know, school, that here we call it secondary, 11 to about 16. I'm thinking that's junior high if you're in the States. I remember easily going days without seeing my mom. You know, my mom was, I think she got married very young. My dad wasn't, you know, the best of men. And, you know, let me just keep it all the way 100. When she announced she was pregnant, he allegedly said, you know, either you have a termination or I leave. You know, so I don't know the ins and outs of their relationship. I need to really go and find him and ask him what happened. Because, you know, there's always three sides to a story. The two people trying to tell you how it went and what actually happened. So I need to ask him because he's getting old now. I need to ask him before he goes into the light, as it were. And so when I came to live with my mom, because initially I was in care, yeah, she was working, she was studying, and at the same time, she had me, and I was a child who, in terms of school, had no problems. I got up, I got myself ready, I went to school, I came back home, empty house, easily didn't see my mother for days at a time. I knew she had been in because food was there, or things had been moved, or she would leave notes either to tell me things or to ask me to do things. But in terms of like a relationship, there wasn't really anything there because she was working and studying so hard. And back then, it's not like now where you have a lot of transport options. If you're going across town to study and you have to be there for 9, you have to leave out at 6 and just commute on the bus for hours. So by the time I got up, she was gone. By the time she came home, I was asleep. And we just lived like this for ages. I just did my thing, she did her thing. We lived in the same house, but we had no interaction. And how many children are going through or have been through the same thing, where you don't see consistent parenting, you're not being guided, you're not being educated about the things of the world, and you're not being protected. I get really annoyed when I hear black women online talking about how many women have been victims of sexual abuse, how many women have been victims of domestic abuse. And my first question is always, where was your mother when this was happening? Because if more black women were staying in the homes, prioritizing being wives and mothers over their education, a lot of these incidences of abuse would not be taking place. And it's much easier to be a stay-at-home wife and mother, or work part-time, or run a business from home when you secure a good man before you start having children. I'm not getting on a soapbox or preaching, but a lot of white women have realized that this culture of the latchkey kid, this culture of children raising children, having older children who will help you raise the smaller children, when they look back, they realize how much they missed out on by just not having a consistent parent in the home where they could come home, there was food on the table, they had a routine, they had assistance with their homework. If they weren't in by a certain time, somebody was on the doorstep looking out for them. I'm not making excuses for black women, but I do feel like this is one of the reasons why black women often tote this strong and independent rhetoric. When I grew up in care and I lived with a foster family, it was very traditional. And it was good. When I came to live with my biological mother, it was the complete opposite. And during those developmental years, social skills, not to get the violins out, but I didn't really have a real friend until I was about 9 years of age. Because although my foster family was really loving and kind, being a black person in an area where there were no black people, I faced a lot of bullying and discrimination. Down to teachers clearly did not like me. And, the only thing you could say is because I was black. Okay? So in terms of development of social skills and, interpersonal skills, they didn't really happen for me because I was somebody who was quite isolated for a long time. Even when I came to live in a city and, now there's a higher proportion of black people, I was too white. So this goes back to the video that I did the other day about, I can't remember what the title is exactly, but it was talking basically about this culture where black people prioritize too many of the wrong things. and they ostracize the people who actually have potential and elevate the people who not necessarily don't have potential, but they're really not doing as much as they should be or could be with that potential. If you speak properly, you sound white. If you dress smart, you're a coon. You know, if you don't like the current trends, you're a lame. And, you know, here we maybe call you geeky or nerdy or funny or weird. And we put labels on people who are actually on their way to being successful in order to derail that success. So that's not really where I was going with this, but I just wanted to throw that in because I want you to watch the other video. That's a shameless plug. And I'm, no, I'm joking. I'm kind of joking, but I'm not joking. Okay, watch the video. But beyond watching the video, we need to change the culture. And it's going to take a lot, because a lot of black women, they get really upset with the things black men say about them online. The reason why black men are frustrated is because a lot of black women will say things like, oh, you know, the community is only as strong as its women. That saying is not, let's give women money, let's give women education, let's give women jobs, let's put women in jobs they can't do, you know, and let's elevate the hell out of women. It's actually saying, if you have a community where you have substandard wives and mothers, women who don't know how to raise a child and care for a home, the children from those households are going to be dysfunctional. They're going to be disadvantaged because they haven't been educated properly. When I look back at myself, you know, I use myself as an example because I'm not talking about anybody in particular. You know, some of the most basic things that are probably common sense to a lot of people, because of the way I was raised, I am failing. I'm not able to just grasp it. You know, little things like social cues because of the isolation, not necessarily missing people or being able to feel like I can rely on people is something that, you know, was never cultivated in me, because, you know, as long as I found a way to fix the problem, I stayed out of trouble, which was a big motivator, because that's another video I want to do about how black women, it's either all or nothing. Everything is super important or nothing is important. And this is one of the reasons why single fathers, although a child raised in any single parent household is going to be not as equipped as a child raised in a two-parent household, children raised in a single father household tend to do a bit better, because men by nature know how to prioritize. This is why you might go to a man's house and it looks like, you know, it looks like shit. You know, there's like a chair that he's had from college, the stereotypical bachelor pad. He doesn't care as long as he's content. So he knows that as long as I've got money in the bank, my bills are paid, I don't care if the curtains match the cushions. That's not a priority. Okay? Whereas for a woman, the small details matter to them, but sometimes we miss the overall picture, which is a bad thing, because we need the long-term goal, the long-term thought, the long-term foresight into what's coming in the future, so that you can prepare today. A man is more likely to give his child that understanding of priorities than a woman, sadly to say. Okay? Because what's important to a woman is not necessarily important in the grand scheme of things. So when I look back and I think, you know, I never really needed to rely on anybody. I never really had to get emotional support from my mother, because that's who it really was. You know, it wasn't that I didn't need it. Let me not say that. It wasn't that I didn't need it. It was there's a word for it. Not detached. It wasn't ambivalent. It was, I can't even remember. But there's a type of attachment that you have, like a distant attachment. There's a name in psychology for it. And basically, I knew even if I needed emotional support, I wouldn't be able to go to her to get it. So what's the point? You know, I'm not giving black women or even black people in general a pass, but that's how it was. And this upbringing, it makes you hard. It makes you defensive. It makes you hard to trust. It makes you somebody who finds it hard to rely on others. And a friend said to me one time, it was so funny. She said to me, one of the things that's, I can't remember the exact word, but she's like, one of the things that's hard about being quote unquote a strong person is no one ever asks you, are you all right? A lot of the times people are crying out for help. They want support. They need emotional support. They maybe need financial support. And it's not just pride stopping them from asking. Because they haven't been raised or nurtured to believe that if I reach out for support, I'm going to get it. Over time, it just doesn't become a habit to be vulnerable and ask for support. And this is a massive problem in the black community, and it's being even more, I don't know if the word is exacerbated or exaggerated, because of the fact that black women are so gung-ho about being the all-in-all. I'm the mother and the father. This mindset is so damaging because a daughter needs to see how a mother interacts with a man, because she's going to emulate what she sees the mother doing. If the daughter has seen the mother doing 2 jobs, taking care of men, you know, being intimate with different men, putting her education first, you know, raising her kids by herself, blah, 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 the daughter is automatically going to think this is normal and okay. Well, I saw my mother do it, so why couldn't I do it? It's fine. The son is going to be used to being mollycoddled. He's going to be used to a woman doing things for him, pushing him, and let's be real, nagging him. Do this, do that, do this, do that. Again, because the woman is so focused on so many little things, it's like a never-ending barrage of constant complaints and nitpicking, which ultimately is going to drive a wedge. No matter the culture, a time is going to come where both children, you know, sons and daughters, they're going to turn on their mothers. Because the daughter, as she starts to develop and she's going to start getting sexual attention, she's going to want to compete for the head of household role with the mother. They're going to start clashing. The mother doesn't want the daughter to grow up too quick. She doesn't want the daughter to come home pregnant. She doesn't want the daughter to start mixing with the wrong type of boys. The daughter thinks she's grown because she's getting male validation. And now there's a power struggle between the 2 females in the house. This is why it's so important to have a father in the home, because he will be the referee between the 2. When the mother is coming down too hard and too much on the daughter, he's going to pull her back. But when the daughter's getting too disrespectful, he's going to check her. And that's important because as a woman, especially in this climate, it's depressing to watch the memes, the narratives. When I first came into the manosphere and I tried to find memes and images that uplifted men or were critical of women, I had a hard task. Unless that meme was created by somebody in MGTOW, it wasn't even something you could find. So when women today have propaganda in the schools, through the media, constantly through social media, and then they have domineering women in their own family, from a very young age, these females are not being raised or and I don't want to say this and sound, you know, people are going to say you're a misogynist, you're a female misogynist, but they're not programmed to think in a way that's going to enable them to have a successful relationship with a man. This is why so many black females, when they grow up in these households, their mentality is not right. The way they perceive a man's actions is not right, because they didn't grow up in a household where they saw men acting right and then being educated as to why he says what he says. Because a daughter's going to go to the mother, oh, daddy's like this, daddy's like that. This is an opportunity for the mother to say, the reason why he said that is this. The reason why he said that is that. So when that daughter grows up now and she encounters men outside, she has, and that's the other thing why it's important to have two parents in the home, because the daughter needs to have a guide who she should go to in terms of a good man. If the mother has a good man as a father, the daughter's not going to choose, or is less likely to choose, a man that is dangerous or out of control or unreliable. It happens, but at least she's more likely to know where she went wrong, because she's like, my dad would never do this. My dad always made sure the bills were paid. My dad always made sure this was done or that was done. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, that people grow up in decent households and they still go and pick the thugs and the guys that have the sweet tongue but really nothing else behind it. But the chances are lower, and the chance of those females still being able to get some kind of semblance of normality and cohesion and unity with a man are higher, because she's seen a woman and a man living in some type of harmony. Likewise, the son, he needs to see two parents in the home because he needs to know what it is to be a man. And he needs to understand the value of a submissive woman. If the mother and the father are living in an orderly manner, the son is going to look for a woman like his mother. Which is why so many black men today are choosing to leave the black community. Either they're going to black women who are not in the West, or they're just leaving black women altogether. Because, like, any form of PTSD that can be triggered, you see, this is why Usher made that song, You Remind Me. He's like, I really got burned by a chick that looks like this, and unfortunately, you look like that chick. I really would date you because you've got the look that I like, but every time I see you, I think about what that girl did to me. And if you grow up in a household that is turbulent, there's abuse, there's dysfunction, when you see that behavior coming through in a different female, you're like, oh, hell no. I'm not going to go through this again. I had enough of this as a child. I'm good, thank you. And a lot of black women don't understand. This is why black men, they don't mind to sleep with you, but they're not really trying to wife you. Because those feelings that were generated or embedded during childhood, they're coming through when they engage with certain women who have a similar mindset. You see, a lot of white women today, they've actually got traditionalist movements. They're going back to conservatism. These women are getting up. I know I saw a program in Australia talking about a lot of these women. They're like, I hate my corporate job. I'm missing out on my children growing up. I just want to go back to the 1950s. I'll don that pinny. I'll cook those, 3 meals a day. I'll be the Stepford wife that you're looking for, because I don't want to be juggling, a semi-good wife, semi-good parent, not really focused on my job. I'm not really doing any of my roles well. And there are some women who do. There are some women who are that skillful because they were raised to be that skillful. But most people do not have what it takes to spread themselves that thinly and do everything so well. Something's got to give. And this is why in these households where there aren't two parents, a lot of abuse and neglect is taking place, because the parents are just too busy and too tired to notice Timmy has a bruise. Tanya has a bump growing. This one looks like they're not eating. This one's failing at school. They just don't have the time or the energy. So what I want to say, in a roundabout way is, if black women want decent men, they're going to have to promote patriarchy. They're going to have to promote traditionalism. And that's not to say as a woman you can't work. It's not to say as a woman you're not allowed to be educated. But you have to understand that your biology is going to dictate how long you have to secure a decent man. And when you have your children, there's a lot of things that you need to educate them on so that they are prepared and equipped to go and be functioning adults and have homes of their own. Being a parent is a full-time job. In the last video I was telling the story, I was babysitting someone's child. I can't even remember who the child was. But they were quite small, not even really talking, just about walking. We're walking down the street and I reached in my bag to get my phone out and I just looked at the phone. When I looked up, this child is sprinting up the street. Now, the child is so small, they think it's a game. The more I'm calling them and chasing them, is the faster those short legs went. I was like, damn. I had to turn it into a game and just grab them up and like, yay, we did some running. Please don't do that again. Being a parent is a job, and it is a full-time job, because before you blink, that child is dragging. We had incidences of people saying, please bolt your TVs to the wall because children are climbing up to the TV and bringing it down on themselves. Please bolt your chests of drawers to the wall. Get a chain and a hook and hook it, because there's videos surfacing of children opening the drawers to make them into a ladder. And as they climb, the whole thing comes down on top of them, and children have died as a result. These videos really only came about because people, obviously, they want to watch the children while they're playing in the playroom or whatever, and they've got cameras. So they capture the footage, and it's scary. It is a full-time job to raise a child into a functioning adult. And a lot of black women who are so proud to say, I'm doing it all, you're really just doing your children a disservice, because they're not getting the benefit of the nurturing. They're not getting the overseeing, the protection. They're not getting that consistent nurturing. They're not feeling like they're valid. They feel like they're a burden, or they're there to be used to help you care for the other children. There's no incentive for them to do well at school, because no matter how well they're doing, there's no one to give them even praise. Everybody's too busy. And when I see, black kids failing, young girls coming up pregnant, black boys hurting each other, killing each other, failing at school, going to prison, it all starts in the home. If you might not like spanking or whooping or beating or however you call it where you come from. You're not in this house by a certain time, you know what you're going to get. Because if you're not at your job at a certain time, here's your P45, thank you for your services, goodbye. If you're not at class at a certain time, you will be asked, you cannot enter now because you've come too late. There are consequences and lessons that need to be learned while you are still at home. Dance at home. Learn to dance at home before you try to dance abroad, is a saying, because there are certain lessons that need to be taught, certain standards that need to be instilled. And when you send your child out like a sheep amongst wolves, ill-equipped, no wonder they're looked down upon. No wonder they're struggling. No wonder they're looking to, celebrities for guidance, because they're not getting guided at home. It's a sad state of affairs, the current state of the black community. And one of the biggest problems is this fact that black women, we want to do it all. We want to have the power. We want to have the ability to brag and boast that we have these accomplishments. But really and truly, I'm not saying that your only accomplishment is having a child and raising a child. But once that child comes into the situation, that has to be the priority. And one of the ways you're going to be able to have that stable life that you want, the housewives' lives, because these women allegedly have money, but I don't see most of them really doing any form of work. If you want to have that lifestyle, secure a good man while you are in your prime. If you see, and this is my final statement, if you see channels, black women who promote staying at home, homeschooling, being a housewife, support those channels. It's time that black women cancel channels that promote negativity, that promote narratives that hurt the black community. Because a channel that breaks down and tears down black men is not a friend of the black community. And the sad thing is, that channel is not a friend to you either. That channel is just poisoning your mind against your own men. And it's going to cause you to operate in a way that's going to naturally drive those men away. And people say, oh, well, it doesn't, well, you know what happened on YouTube is not real life. So why are videos about how to wash my vagina having like hundreds of thousands to friggin' millions of views? Why do channels about how to do my natural hair have thousands of subscribers and views? Because these women are being failed as teenagers. How to cook, how to clean, how to iron a shirt, these are things that women used to just do. But because of the failure and the breakdown of the family, which is partly more I would put on women than men, because of the fact that women have moved out of the position of traditionalism, daughters are coming through, and this is why they're all on the Instagram. They have nothing else but 5 kilos of makeup and a thong and a duck face picture. That's all they have. And then they're out here talking about my esteem. You would have had self-esteem, confidence, and a solid, good man if you had had a father in the home to teach you what to value in the first place. But because you haven't got anything else, of course the only thing you're gonna use is your looks and your sexuality. The black community is over-sexualized. I know it's by design. I know it's to keep people on a base level of thinking and operating because that makes us easier to control. I know. But if we want to break this cycle, we have to start with returning to traditional gender roles, returning to traditional family structures, prioritizing our children, and actually teaching them what they need to be functioning, healthy, productive adults. And that is a full-time job. So if you've made it this far, like I always say, you've done very well. Thank you so much for bearing up under my my voice that I hate so much. You know, if you have any comments, if you have any suggestions, please leave them in the comment section below. Give this video a big thumbs up. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.